now we have no direct change, and I'm living in Kenya now, so I moved to Nairobi about 2 months ago, so we keep a very close tab on it. There's no plan for me to evacuate or my family to evacuate, and I think that we'll keep a close eye and monitor the situation as it develops.
Sounds promising. Thanks very much.
Your next question comes from Mark Wilson with Macquarie. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Keith. First question on the southern string of pearls, getting very de-risked in terms of oil there. But can I just confirm that the gross interval in the upper zone that you found at Twiga, just because Nagami, obviously that was a very large gross interval, I think 755 meters with the top of oil coming at 855. And then moving north of the plate into the northern string of pearls, actually, 10 BA, the bulk of your prospective resources. But could you comment on how much of those are underneath the lake, and also how close the Rift Valley fault is to that lake in the northern string of pearls? And then lastly, I just noticed you mentioned the Pai Pai rig moving back to Lokichar, and I thought there was a well to be drilled on Block 9 after Pai Pai. And those are my questions. Thanks.
Okay. Hopefully I can remember all of those. So the gross interval, I don't have that number at hand. So unfortunately I can't give you that. It was, the upper sands were outside of closure. So it wasn't until we entered about 2/3 of the way into the column where we actually started building the column. And essentially everything from that point down was every porous interval was filled with hydrocarbons. So I'm afraid I can't tell you that exact number, but adding the 700 meters down below, it was a very substantial hydrocarbon column seen at the well. The second one, remind me again the second.
The second one was really the bulk of your resources, prospective resources, are in the
okay. So the northern string of pearls, we are going to be drilling the Sabisa well, which will be right in the heart of the northern string of pearls. To me, the biggest risk in Sabisa and the northern province is there a source rock kitchen or not. And that well will be a very interesting test to see if there are hydrocarbons. We do see some oil slicks out on the lake. We do see some amplitude on seismic that could indicate hydrocarbons. But that northern string of pearls is significantly riskier than the southern string of pearls, just due to the fact that we haven't proven a hydrocarbon kitchen like we have down in the Lokichar Basin. So as far as how much is in the lake and how much is outside of the lake, it's roughly 60-40. 60% of the NBA, the prospects are in the lake, and about 40% of them are onshore. Of the 60% that are in the lake, about a half to a third of those can be reached from the onshore. So there's only some of the prospects that go right down the middle that have to be drilled with some type of offshore rig. It's not our intention in the short term to drill anything out in the lake. We are very cognizant that we want to be very careful about exploring around Lake Turkana. It's a very sensitive environmental area. We're working very closely with the Leakey Foundation because it also is a World Heritage Site across the border in South Omo and Ethiopia. So we will be treading very carefully in that part of the portfolio. But it is, as you rightly point out, almost half of our prospective resources are located in the South Omo and NBA blocks.
Okay, and then just finally, the Pai Pai rig. I thought there was a follow-on well in Block 9.
We will be drilling a well in Block 9. We have a commitment well to drill. We plan to drill it in the second half of next year, but we plan to tender for our own rig on that. Frankly, the rig, Pai Pai rig would be available too soon for us to take from Tullow. And I think Tullow would prefer to keep that rig active in the Lokichar Basin as well. So we will be going out to tender early this year and getting our own rig to come in. The rig market is actually fairly good right now. We've had quite a few
comes from Ron Watts, private investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, Keith. Ron here, Vancouver. Hey, that's when you hit a monster column that's 800 meters, even though there's some questions about how much oil and the fractures. If you take the depth of the reservoir times the width, and can you comment on the extent of the size of the possible oil jewel there now, since it's so surprisingly deep? When you take the width times the depth and look at how much oil possibly now might be in that if it does work in the lower. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, probably not. I mean, number one, we really haven't done the homework ourselves, but number two, under reporting rules, we are obliged to have third-party consultants review our prospective resources, prospective reserves, and the number that we release to the market is generally one that has been vetted by a third party. So I don't think we're at liberty to talk about that. Even if we did have, and it's still too early days to have our own internal volume estimates, I don't think we're allowed to report that to the market.
But speculatively, a person can think, I think as an investor, when I think how large it might be now, it could possibly be much larger than you thought. And what does this do in terms of the from one well to the next well, like you're 22 kilometers to the north? When something's the size of a mountain and you move out and not every hole and crack is filled with oil, it leads to a great thinking that maybe the aerial extent could be larger now, I guess, eh?
Yeah, I think, we are very encouraged by the fact that we have a very good hydrocarbon system, a very strong source rock that is filling up all these porosities. But, we do need to test these wells first before we know how much of that potential net pay is actually effective net pay. And again, I think there's a lot more homework to do, including 3D seismic appraisal wells before we start feeling comfortable about the potential volume of these discoveries.
How many wells do you think could go into these structures?
Again, way too early to tell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from David Marzai with SG. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Keith. Just a question for me. The brittle nature of the lower reservoir, is that a function of the deposition? Is that a function of it being a mix of sand and shells? Or is it more to do with diagenesis? Is it more to do with the actual depth it's been buried? Hence the reason why the lower ones are brittle and fracture and the upper ones retain the porosity.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be in a different type of environment. If you look at the velocity of these rocks, they're much higher velocity than the normal sands. But I don't mean to be evasive, but frankly, we just don't know the answer to that. We have taken sidewall cores, and we do have some core in this area. So I think we will be able to figure that out once that data is properly processed. The conjecture is that this may be some type of basement wash that's been highly cemented. So your diagenetic explanation may be the most likely kind of right now, but we should have all the facts once we've had time to review the core and analyze the sidewall cores, and I think we'll be able to give a much better answer about that at that time.
Understood. And today, Tullo's experience in Uganda is the only real other evidence you have in the Rift Valley. That none of the prior wells drilled in the 80s and the 90s actually got down this far or witnessed anything similar.
No, I think Angus McCost in his press release today from Tullo said that this is a new play never seen before in East Africa. So if anyone would know, it would be Tullo.
Many thanks for your answers, Keith.
Your next question comes from Aldo Wright with DBSL. Please go ahead.
Excuse me, hi Keith. Actually, one of my questions was already partially answered with regard to the flow test that will be done over the next 4 to 8 weeks. Is there any insight as to what we can expect if not numerically, then at least structurally when you make the presentation. And it kind of ties back into the press release that was on October 31st that indicated that results were coming, and obviously as you saw what happened on the market, they weren't terribly well received or well interpreted. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I think, obviously a number of investors have been calling me over the past couple of days, which is over the past day, which is one of the things that precipitated this call to probably try to answer investors' questions all at once. The thing that I think most people focus on was the number of 30 meters. And I think the expectation was maybe that it would be a higher number. I have to say we're not going to drill a Gamio well every time. 30 meters is still would be classified in Uganda as one of the best wells that they drilled in the basin. So we're quite happy with 30 meters. We're actually quite happy that it could become more if we drill up dip and prove that up dip potential. I think as far as the share reaction, I think the two things I got from shareholders were, one, that they were expecting more than 30 meters, and two, that they didn't quite understand this fractured reservoir that we were talking about in the deeper section.
Okay, that's fine for the moment. I guess we just wait for another 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think that'll be, obviously, I think we've got a lot of oil in place. There's no doubt about that. But the two huge column heights we've got, and now the next thing will be, what type of flow rates can we get out of these reservoirs? I think that'll be a very important press release when we get these things properly tested.
Do you think then, to talk about the flow rates, and that may have been what led to the disappointment yesterday, that there wasn't more tangible flow rates from the results?
Yeah, there was no intention that we were going to be announcing test results at that point. Maybe we didn't communicate that to the market. Maybe there were some people who were expecting test results as well. But the well just reached TV, ran logs, we ran MDTs, and then we released the results and described the testing program. I think we had communicated that to shareholders, but perhaps not as good as we could have.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the October 31 release, and specifically it's an announcement of the drilling results is expected early to mid-November after target has been achieved. So, it's pretty vague, and people were...
Yeah, I think we put in drilling results, and we didn't have testing results.
Right, sure.
The drilling results are different than the testing results.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Your next question. One more question?
Thank you. Your next question comes from Pascal Menges with Lombard. Please go ahead.
Hi, Keith. And congratulations for that well, by the way. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Yeah. I have a few questions on that well. Firstly, have you released the net to gross ratio on the tertiary sands where you accounted the 30 meters of net pay? And secondly, can you tell us if those sands that you encountered were the upper Locony sands or the lower Locony sands, or a combination of the two?
Unfortunately, I don't have that number of net to gross. I think someone else had asked me that same question. I just don't have the number of what the net to gross is in that upper Lacombe section, but they are all upper Lacombe sands.
Okay, so that's...
We do not believe we ever penetrated the lower Lacombe. We think we went right from the Lacombe shale into this fractured reservoir rock.
Okay, so that leads for me to another question, which is the presence or not of the lower Locony sands at that point. Because looking at your presentation in November 2012, it seems to be that for all the prospects, you have the Congoni prospects and the Kamba prospects, and the lower Locony sands is a key primary, the primary targets. So my question there is, were you surprised not to see the lower Locony sand, and what is the implication for the prospectivity in the area and the number we've seen from the CPR, if we assume that this CPR was based on the lower Locony sands only?